Yo, what's going on YouTube? GZTV back with another video, and in this video we are going to be talking about Beef. We have finished the show up. I've watched the last episode. We're going to talk about it here, and then we're going to talk about Bodies, the A24 film I watched last night. So yeah, let's just get into it. We got some quick YouTube content. You guys know, obviously, there's not going to be a recap tonight. I might stream tonight if there's some things to talk about. I don't know, though. But I'm not super motivated to stream it all, so it is what it is. But episode 9 ended with a close-up of a crow looking at the accident. Given the show's A24 bread, there was no way the crow was random. One is instantly reminded of a story Danny told about his childhood. He nursed a crow back to health after its leg broke and fed it for the entire duration. Well, the crow is actually the same one that Danny helped out. What are the odds of that happening? There's an interesting little intro there to the show. He converses with another crow who mentions that Amy scared its uncle once, and there's like this interesting like full circle moment, like these characters continue to have things like connected to each other and whatnot. They decide to help Danny out if he is in trouble, and that actually materializes. When Danny gets out of his car, Amy stands over him pointing her gun at him. I'm gonna have to blow my nose a couple of times. I'm super nasally again. I don't know what's happening. I pop my ears every time. My head starts to hurt because I keep blowing my nose. She wants Danny to stay put while she phones the police, but the crows attack her and Danny is able to escape. So, yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. He creates a ploy to throw Amy down the slope. It works, and Amy badly injures herself, and our characters are kind of like stuck in the wild in like a survival of the fittest situation with limited resources, and that's something we haven't really seen throughout the show. I mean, Amy and Danny actually like work together for once, and they come together in this situation. When Amy wakes up, she is barely able to walk. She also cannot find her gun, so she starts to like slightly panic. Neither Amy nor Danny can get reception at the police, even though their phones are functional. Despite going in separate directions, they end up on adjacent rocks. They exchange a few curse words until Danny mentions Paul. Since Amy actually cared for him, she's concerned and steps towards Danny with compassion. Like, wait, what happened to him? Did he die? She tries to comfort him. Danny asks if she knows the way, and she says yes, but cannot walk, and Danny has to help her. They gotta get out of this fucking place. Like, this isn't a place for normal, suburban people. Danny still is kind of like a suburban dude. He carries her on his shoulders. When he refuses to offer her Skittles that he keeps in his pocket because of his sweet tooth, Amy pinches his head. He drops her, and they spot a gun nearby. Both latch for it, but Amy gets to it and breaks Danny's shoulder. So they're still kind of beefing, but they're also like helping each other. Interesting dynamic, for sure. Even in their situation, Danny mocks Amy by saying George wouldn't check on her after all she put him through. So Amy's calling the shots and the wild elderberries. Amy instructs Danny to find elderberries because they need to find food. They need to find a reliable food source that are out in the wild. They're edible and will keep them going. Amy confirms the stuff Danny finds and they both eat. However, they regret it a little later. They puke constantly and sense that they have been poisoned, but they probably didn't even get the right berries to begin with. Amy is not a plant expert after all and admits that she Googles stuff to sound smart. Don't we all? Danny says he will go look for help, but Amy points her gun and asks him not to leave her alone. But the gun is actually just a wooden stick, and Danny is not even there. What are chemicals? How are all Asians lactose intolerant? And a few other pointless questions float around in Amy and Danny's wicked and hilarious conversation. The hallucinatory dance under the moonlight happens. That's kind of an interesting moment. No help arrives, and it is already night, so they kind of gotta camp out there for the night. Danny and Amy are still together, but thankfully she was only hallucinating, struggling to make sense of time. It was not like the movie Fall, where the hallucinations were about a dead person. Danny still isn't thrown up, and Amy says he will feel better if he does. Danny goes off talking about how their parents passed on the byproduct, their struggles, trauma, and pain to them, and I guess this is like a commentary on immigration and like moving to America and kind of like navigating the world. Danny hears the leaves rustle and sees it is only Amy. They are both hallucinating under the moonlight. They're both like talking to each Sorry. They both think they're talking to each other, but when they're talking to each other, neither of them are actually, like, one of the other is not actually there, and it's, like, really interesting. Now that they have a better sense of time and reality, Amy and Danny talk about how the 80s generation served as the guinea pig of technology. They had it the worst in terms of addiction and also opportunities. Amy seems to agree, so at least they can, like, kind of come together on that front. So when Amy brings up Paul, Danny expresses his guilt for not being open with him and not, like, sharing how he felt. All he did was try to bring Paul down and keep him at his level. Amy says, in a way, we all want to be seen, and continues by establishing the bottom line of all human existence, adding, but not who they really are. We all want our ugly parts to be hidden from the world that makes us rot inside and give us immeasurable suffering. Amy and Danny are just two instances of that inherent brokenness. Amy accepts she does not like George's vases. She even broke one on purpose and blamed it on June. Her existential dread surfaces when she says she does not know if George and June mean home to her anymore. It is the most visceral display of depression we have seen in this series until now. It has come at a time when they know living on is not certain, and they're kind of like surviving here. Amy finally confesses she felt June would make her whole, but she did not. And neither did the business or George's companionship. She even feels that June does not love her unconditionally as Amy loves her, prompting Danny to call all babies monsters who cannot do anything to get what they want. And then this is the moment where we realize, do Amy and Danny finally have compassion for each other? Amy and Danny's conversation makes it difficult for us to know what is real and what is not. They've truly crossed the bridge when we see them talking as each other. It is almost like they have subrogated themselves into each other's shoes, like Jennifer's body. This is representative of the fact they were finally able to find each other's brokenness and understood it. Watching the scene is surreal, and props to the makers for creating this compelling imagery. So, in that moment, Amy and Danny saw each other for who they really were and accepted those ugly parts. The world did not, and for a long time they felt angry at themselves for that reality, but not anymore. They narrate incidents from each other's lives, confirming the above again. Amy and Danny call themselves not normal and wonder why God would make them like this and others normally. Their conversation is quite intense, philosophical, and formless, but it doesn't matter anymore because they would be dead by the morning anyway. For one last time, they find compassion for each other and realize all they wanted was never to be alone. They were angry at each other because they hated themselves. It is a beautiful moment when they apologize and say that they should not hide who they really are anymore. Does Danny survive? Do Danny and Amy end up together? How does the show end? I'm about to tell you. So, come morning, they are still alive. They celebrate before Danny begins carrying Amy again. They are nearing the roads, and in their newfound acceptance of life, they also admire the beautiful wilderness of LA, until they find reception and the ugliness spills over to their phones. Paul is alive but vows never to talk to Danny again. George is actually concerned about Amy, and Fumi is concerned if Amy got the email from George's lawyer. Amy and Danny walk shoulder to shoulder towards civilization. They have resolved their beef and have found respect and admiration for one another. She offers to pay for his lawyer because obviously she's fortunate and has money. Suddenly, we see George rush in. He has a gun, and from his point of view, it is looking like Danny is hitting Amy. He fires the gun, and the screen goes blank. Danny is still alive, but barely. He is on life support, and Amy is by his side, looking on concerned. Her mind goes back to the day she showed him a middle finger in the moment of hesitance right before it. She breaks down, looking at him, and climbs into bed with Danny. She embraces him, and the lights around them change, indicating the passage of time. The series finally ends with Danny putting his arm around Amy. From that, it does seem that they might have ended up together. That is what we would like to think as well, In the end, Amy and Danny did what we wanted them to do on many occasions in the series, see each other. We knew how alike they were, and the makers did a tremendous job of pushing the story in that direction. All is well that ends well, and beef ends in the best possible way. So yeah, I mean, Beef is arguably the best series on Netflix this year, honestly. The best limited one anyway. I don't know about, I mean, The Watcher was good as well. The last two episodes have elevated it beyond normal storytelling while still remaining grounded in very real humane emotions. The human condition is at Beef's core, and episode 10 touched upon that with perfection. I mean, the entire episode was Amy and Danny trying to understand each other and figuring out what they share the same brokenness, or figuring out that they share the same brokenness that makes them so bitter. It is a beautiful end, and we will share more thoughts yeah, if you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Very good show. Go watch this. This is a spoiler review. I know I didn't give you guys a disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but go watch the show. It's awesome. Tells